Okay, so if you do a quick Google to look at texture maps that are done for characters in games or even in TV series, you'll notice one thing. That is right, a lot of them are very tidy. This is game characters. So game characters, everything is being squashed into one map. As much as possible, you want to use as little images as you possibly can. So they actually put the entire character into one map. If you're talking about, let's say, animation, right? Maybe the t-shirt will have its own map, the armor will have its own map, and things like that. Okay, but for games, we are very frugal. We want to save on everything. So if you can save on as much resources as you can, we will do that. So you notice that, number one, the shells are packed very closely together. No waste of space. Everything is, you can see, obviously, even the smallest map is not too small. Okay, there's enough space for everything, including the ears. So if it's too small, right, you'll notice it looks pixelated because not enough pixels there. Alright, but then they still try to utilize as much as possible. Secondly, you notice that you can see all the shells very clearly, right? If you do digital painting, you notice that the lines are not so clean. You actually paint out the lines. So we need to prepare our UVs so that when we paint, right, it will look very tidy, like things like that. Okay, you might think that these are things that nobody is going to see, isn't it? It's something that you do behind the scenes. Nobody's going to look at it. But if you were to look for a job, especially in games, in 3D companies, a portfolio is technically a showcase of your work. And it's not a photo gallery. If you are doing like digital painting, you might think photo gallery, right? Just showing my work, that's it. Okay, but for 3D, it's very different. They are very concerned with how you work, not the end product. So you might have a very beautiful end result, okay? But if, let's say, your line work, the flow of your lines are unusable, right? Maybe too dense, or the lines don't flow well for animation, then basically they can't use your work. And if your textures are like rubbish, okay, it's not clean, again, it reflects on who you are as an artist. So in production, you are doing work as a huge team. So most of your stuff, right, will be passed down to the next person. So if the person behind the line, right, cannot understand your work, or your work is in a mess, then technically you're not a very good team player. So this is what they are trying to look for. So portfolios, especially for 3D stuff, they are very, very functional. The way you present your portfolio, you need to show how you actually get to the end result. Okay, so let's say if you are interested in modeling, right? So you don't just show like your models. What they are looking for is your wireframe, like this. Okay, and you can see, again, it's very functional. They will show, this one didn't say much, but they will actually show the number of polygons they used. See these 667 triangles. Alright, so again, it's not beautiful pictures. Okay, they want to see, does your thing work or not? It's more important to them. So let's say texture map. If you want to be a texture artist, right, you need to showcase the maps that you use. Okay, so there are actually more than one kind of map. For example, what we are learning right now is just a color map. It means to add colors to it. But there's actually maps like specular. Specular means you paint which part of the object is shiny, which part is not. Like, your face, you have a T-zone, right? That's always the oiliest part of your face. Your elbows are always the shiniest. Okay, your kneecaps and things like that, your knuckles. So these are the part where it's going to be more shiny than others. So they will paint like a map just for that. They have another map, the purple one. This one contains sculpting details. So for games, we don't usually model every single wrinkle and all that. We have You see the Assassin's Creed one, right? It's very basic, you know. There's nothing much there. So low poly, 667 only. Okay, so all the sculpted details are actually a texture map, what we call normal map. NORMAL. This is only created by a sculpting engine. So you actually take into ZBrush or Mudbox to sculpt, and then you export it out as like a very flat piece of image based on your UVs, and you apply it back to this low poly model, and that's what you get. So there's actually much more maps that we are not going to cover in this lesson. Okay, we're just going to cover the basic, which is color map, and that's, I think, more than enough for you guys already. So let's take a look at how can we start to create shells, okay, so that we can paint very easily. So first thing is to use the magic wand, W. And the magic wand is over here. You need to click and hold. If you don't see this icon, click and hold and you will see additional tools. If there's a tiny arrow in the bottom right hand corner, right, it means that there's more than one tool living in this square. Okay, so just click and hold. See your magic wand, W. So magic wand is to select broad spaces. Okay, so I'm going to use the wand and click on an empty area in my UV. Okay, click on an empty area, so it should select everything around your shell. Go to select, and we want to inverse. So it's going to flip your selection to the other way around. So now it is selecting my shells, right? Next thing is we're going to expand the selection a little bit. So right now it's directly on our shell itself. We're going to have this issue whereby you paint so accurately, Maya is going to show some, it's going to leak, okay, it's going to start bleeding through. So we need some extra. So let's go to select, modify, expand. Okay. So I want to expand my selection by, okay, let's say 8 pixels. You can actually mess around, okay, how many pixels you want. So just now this morning we've tried 8 and it kind of works perfectly with our space. So that's what we'll stick to. So it isn't like you have to go and memorize the 8, okay? So it's just meant for you to trial and error. So once you have selected something like this, right, we want to save our selection somewhere so that every time when we paint, it doesn't get out of the outline. So that's what we're going to do in Photoshop. We're going to do something called masking. Okay, and the idea is exactly the same. Whereby, where there is the masking tape, right, you basically cannot paint on it. Okay? And where there's no masking tape, you are painting directly on the canvas itself. So what do I mean by that? Okay, so let's go to our layers. Layers is over here. Okay. And shall we rename this guy to wireframe so we'll constantly know what it is? Okay, to turn on and off layer is the eyeball. So if we go down all the way to the bottom of the panel, I'm just going to shift this up a bit. You can see this guy here. This is called a layer mask. So with your selection still there, right, click on add layer mask. And it's going to create this extra black and white kind of image. Nothing is going to happen to your scene so far, just that your selection disappears, right? So what this does is that it saves your selection. So every time you want to load back your selection, right, just command click on the layer mask, and you get back your selection anytime. This command click thing, right, works for anything. For example, if I have a new layer and then I start painting, right? Let's say I start painting, okay? If you command click on the layer, you can load it as a selection. So if you are doing your Photoshop work, right, and you need to quickly select for, I don't know, you need to select that layer itself, you can actually command click. Okay, that's how you load your selection. So we have our selection saved. Now what we're going to do is we will create some base color. Remember the checklist that we did? I'm going to do a basic color first, and then we're going to work from there. So I'm going to create a new layer. I'm going to call this BG, background. I'm going to fill the background with black. So how do you fill the background with black? Okay, double click on this guy here. Okay, and choose a black color in your color picker. Alright. Once you have that, we're going to use something called the fill bucket. The paint bucket. Shortcut key is G. If you don't see the bucket, right, it's because it's hidden under the gradient tool. So again, in Photoshop, there's many tools stacked into one toolbox, right? But rest assured, Photoshop is actually much easier to use than Maya, comparatively lah, okay? So click on the paint bucket. Make sure you have black here, and you want to click on the BG layer so that it is black. So essentially you are creating a black surface, and the black surface serves as your background. So if you have, oh, why did I close that? Okay, if you have game text, your texture map, right? Let's see. Do you see that there's a lot of like this black background here? So that's what we are creating. We are creating the background to make sure there's no transparent areas in our map. Okay, so next part is we need a base color. So I'm going to create a new layer, and I'm going to call this base color, or base for short. And you might want to choose your favorite color. So I'm just going to choose a teal. Oh wow, so blinding. Maybe a bit less teal, okay? Yeah, there you go. Alright, so this is going to serve as the base for our metal. Let's create a metal texture today, so that when you go back and look at the tutorial, right, you understand what the rocket video is talking about. Okay, so we have got our background and we've got a base color, but I still cannot see my shell, right? So make sure you move your wireframe to the top layer. So just drag the wireframe layer to the very top. You can actually drag your layers around, okay? So drag it to the top. So this wireframe is going to be on top all the time, so you know what you're painting. Okay, and the background is going to be at the bottom all the time. So there's like a sandwich that we're looking at. So we're going to create stuff in a base color, and if you click and drag the mask layer, right? So click and drag to transfer your mask from wireframe to base color. So drop it on base color, And you can see straight away it cleans up your entire stuff. That's the strength of masking, is that you can anyhow paint. It's gonna clean up the things for you. Okay, so nice. But we're not gonna keep creating new layer. I'm gonna take my another color. We're not gonna like, oops. We're not gonna paint and then, oh, I need another mask, and then you keep masking. How do you copy the mask? Alternate, click and drag. In fact, if you alternate anything and drag, right, it's going to create a copy. For example, I'm in my move tool, my V tool, and I click on layer 1, right, my blobby pane here. Hold down alternate and move it. You can create copies. So this is very fast in terms of how you duplicate stuff. You just alternate, drag that thing, and you get copies. Okay. So for every new layer, it can't be that you are always duplicating that layer mask. Okay, it can get a bit tiring after a while, right? So I'm gonna create a group, and I'm gonna mask that group. So any layer that's within that group, right, is gonna get masked the same way. Okay, so I'm gonna maybe select this two, shift click. If you have multiple layers, if you don't have, you can just click on that one and go to this folder guy. So we're going to focus a lot on this layers panel today. Okay, so go to this folder guy and click on create new group. It's going to group my selected layers together. Command G for shortcut key. Okay, I'm going to give this name color so I know. Once you start building up different textures, right, next time you might have something called a bump map, a bump folder, a normal map folder, a specular folder. Okay, you have more and more. So it's a good habit to keep all your color map, right, in one single folder. So I'm going to move my masking to the folder itself, and you can see that now whatever new layer I create, right, it will just get masked all together as well. Okay, so this is a very, very cool concept. In fact, if you need individual masks, right, command click to load your selection. Command click on the map, and then you want to use maybe your rectangular marquee or something, your M2. You guys are familiar with the tools, right? Because I'm going to run through them very, very fast. Okay, I can't be like making this a pure Photoshop class. Photoshop alone is a module in itself. Okay, so can't be going through everything. So I'm just using the rectangular marquee, the M2. This is for selection. So if you hold down alternate is to minus your selection. So you can kind of like delete away the selection that you have loaded. This kind of masking load selection thing, right, you will encounter it a lot more in 3D texturing. In digital painting, not so much. If you do like altering your photographs and things like that, right, the digital manipulation, yes, you use a lot of this kind of masking and loading selection, things like that. So I'm not sure what kind of assignment you are given for Photoshop classes in the future or even now. So whether or not you will learn masking, right, I'll just teach you as much as I can. Okay, so just bear in mind that you might learn it again, or you might not, depending on your assignment. But all these things, right, you can always easily find online. So I can even use my lasso tool. You guys know the lasso tool. All these here are selection tools. Okay, you've got your move tool, you've got your rectangular, your elliptical marquee, you've got lasso, polygonal, and magnetic tools. Okay, so if you don't want fixed shapes, you can use lasso, which is more free, easy. Okay, freehand. And then of course you have your magic wand, which is to select large area of similar colors. So I'm going to use my lasso tool. I'm going to hold down alternate to deselect. So essentially, right, I just want one of my circle to be selected. Then you can mask again. Okay, so the idea is that the masking, right, saves your selection, so you don't have to do it over and over again. So I can always command click. If you are in Windows, you're using control. So command click on the mask to load the selection, and then you deselect the areas that you don't want. Okay, and then you just mask it. So you get a mask, a separate mask for different pieces. So that's how you can kind of that's how you can create masks for yourself. Alright? If you drag it to the rubbish bin, you can delete away your mask. So that is for base color. So I'm gonna just create another layer, and I'm gonna use my paintbrush and start to maybe paint some additional detail, something like that. Okay, so you want to create all your paintworks in different layers, so that if you change your mind, right, you can actually easily change the color. For example, if this is a little bit advanced, if you cannot understand, right, don't worry. When you go out to work, you will see people using it, and then you kind of remember. So let's say your client comes to you and say, maybe you make a lot of details, like, oh, I made some polka dot, a lot of details, right? And then your client comes to you and say, hey, I don't want all the darker colors to be teal. I want it to be yellow. Can you do something about it? So you go like, oh, it's either you load your selection, you change the color, or you slowly, okay, I'm going to change to yellow. I'm going to create a new layer. I'm going to try and paint it back again. Okay, like what I say, there are many ways to do the same thing, and if you notice that you are doing it in a very slow and manual way, right, they start questioning, because there is definitely an easier way to do the same thing. Okay, this program has been around for years and years and years, so they definitely have something for you that can be faster. So what you can do if your client says, hey, I want to change a different color. So all you need to do is to right click, choose something called blending options. This is sort of like the layer options that you can play around with. Okay, and there are so many things that you can do with this. For example, right, you can do a bevel and emboss. You guys know what bevel and emboss is? No? Later. Okay, we will talk about that later. It's basically to make it like pop in and out, like 3D. So you're kind of doing like those, you know, do y'all still look at greeting cards? Like, no more, right? Like for example, if you have a greeting card or you have a book that you read, the cover, sometimes the letters will pop out. Those are embossing. Okay, so if you want a 2D image to look like it's 3D coming out at you, then bevel and emboss is something that you want to look at. Okay, then of course you can drop shadow, like you can have inner shadow, outer shadow, you can have some glow. For example, let me just show you. You can make all your layers start glowing. You can have drop shadow. Okay, so it basically makes all your layers have drop shadows, right? So it's just a matter of playing around with the settings. You can have inner glow, inner shadow. You can have, okay, let's look at bevel. So bevel and emboss, right? Basically, it makes things 3D. Can you see that? Alright, so you can choose whether to pop in or to pop out. You can choose the size of your bevel, whether it's soft or hard, and things like that. I intend to run through this today, but I don't think I have the time to do that. So you can just explore this on your own time, okay? But what I want to show you is something called a color overlay. So if your client say, change color, you can easily go to color overlay and you can straight away change the color of your entire layer. So let's say you want, so you can easily just choose the color that you want. Okay? So that is for color overlay. So we have some additional colors, right? Now our next step, okay, can you save first? So let's do a Command S, file save. And I want to save this in the same folder. I'm going to call this color. So cylinder underscore color. Sorry, not color, wrong. Texture. Why the word texture? Because you can actually create multiple maps. So we don't want it to be just strictly for color mapping. Okay, so texture PSD, do a save. PSD means Photoshop file, okay? Next step, let's create some metal look. Right now it's very cartoony. Okay, doesn't make sense. So I'm gonna just look for metal texture. So can you Google metal texture? Go to images and I'm gonna use this piece here. Now when you look for textures, right, there's a difference between good and bad texture. Good textures are those that are flat without any specific highlight here and there. That means there's no like light direction. It's very flat and very, perpendicular to your face. Now this texture is considered quite bad because you can actually see the highlight coming from the top. It's sort of as though there's a light that's shining from the top. So the moment you put on your 3D model, right, it becomes very obvious that there's some kind of weird lighting there. And then if your lighting direction changes and it's different, like your object rotates and moves, right, this thing is totally going to give it away. Same for this, okay? All this, crazy like shining light thing, right, is very obvious. In fact, this is not even good also because it's sort of like a flashlight going on here. Okay, so again, it's very obvious. So where can you find good texture map? I've given you the link where to find free textures for 3D project, okay? Over here is a link, it's full of links of all the websites that give you textures that are ready for 3D projects. Don't have any, it's clean up, don't have any light source. Some of them are seamless. Seamless means you can stack them next to each other and they still look okay. So most of them require a login account so that you can download for free, and every day you are given, I think, like a fixed number of downloads, like maybe you can download 15 MB or something like that. Yeah, that's a daily thing, and can only download the small or medium sized images. Okay, so that's kind of standard for most of the free texture websites. So the second one that I gave you, textures.com, is also found within the list here. Okay, so this one is the one that I've used for many years, and you can easily just type metal and it's gonna give you textures that you can use. Like for example, they have this alpha. It's very useful to paint stuff like that. Okay, so you can actually click into all these, and I believe they have the 2D version. See that? So again, this is actually quite lousy, so you need to still find the good ones within this maps. So same thing, this one you have to create an account and then you can start downloading. Yeah, so don't worry, it's not gonna like ask you for money secretly. Okay, so it's just a daily install, that's all. Okay, so for now in class, right, we're just gonna randomly download one. Okay, even though it's bad. In fact, I can show you how to fix some of these like really bad textures. Okay, once you've downloaded the texture, just drag it into your Photoshop and it should open up on your image itself. Press enter. So you're gonna see that for your layer, it has this very special icon here compared to the rest. This is what we call a smart object. So what a smart object does is that it saves the original file in its original format, okay? So no matter what you do to this image, right? For example, if I were to, let's say I were to change the size, you don't have to do this, okay? But just understand what's going on. Let's say I were to let's say I try to warp my image. Alright, so this is actually quite good for your digital painting if you want to do like textile like lace or cloth, or even a banner or a tattoo that goes around the arm, right? So you can actually warp this image. Now if let's say you want to make changes to the tattoo, but you already warped the image around the arm, right? So in order to pin the, let's say you to type a word in that is distorted this way, it's very difficult to keep the shape. So what you can do is, if this is a smart object, you can double click and it will load up its original image. So you can start to, let's say I can start typing things. Okay, and I save, right? Now back in my can't save. Okay, the moment you save your original smart object, it's going to transfer your info to the warped version. So if let's say you were to do tattooing, you were to do some weird decal, you can always make use of this idea of smart object, whereby even if you distort it in Photoshop, it doesn't matter, as in you distort it in your file. Okay, it's not gonna matter too much, because the moment you go back and you start to edit, it's gonna update. Right? So it's a very powerful concept that that you can consider. So I'm just gonna close this. I'm gonna delete this file. I'm gonna bring back my texture again. And step number 2 that we want to do is to start blending in this texture into the base color. Okay, so we're going to have a colored metal in that sense. So quick question. Can you see the texture on the wall in front of you? Can. A bit. Okay. Anybody else can see the texture on the wall from where you are sitting? Means the roughness, the pop marks, okay, the things that are... Yes, no, yes, no, nobody. Can you see the texture on your table? Yeah, can? Okay, so the idea of texture is that it depends on where you are sitting, right? How far or how close you are. So for example, a lot of newbies, when they do textures, they like to show people that they are texturing. For example, oh, metal, right? Okay, I'm gonna make sure that maybe I just use one size and I make it really big. Okay, but the thing is that metal, right, you don't really see every single thing. You don't see the whole rocket ship, right, and you see all the metal parts, like really in your face bumpiness. Usually, the more realistic size for texture is, you can think of like human paws, okay, you don't really see your paws, right, unless you go up close. So for metal, maybe the actual realistic size could be like that. Alright? So you need to be very careful the size of your texture. If you go too big, right, it becomes very unrealistic. Okay, so make sure you scale down, find a texture that can seamlessly match up. So in this case, right, my textures are not really matching up very well. Okay, there is a link that I put up in learning materials. So there's I will constantly update this folder called additional materials. So now and then you can look at it. Okay, if you scroll to the bottom, there's something called how to create seamless texture. I'm not gonna do it in class because it's gonna get too much. Alright, so this is quite easy to follow. So if you need to like tile your texture but it's not tileable, then you can just look at this. Okay, so anyway, let's try to blend our metal into the base color. So I'm going to delete everything else and we're going to focus on something called blending layers, I believe that's the word. Okay, so under your normal, right now your layers is it's called blending mode. Yes, right now it's under the normal mode, right? So that means it display normally. Let's choose something called overlay. We're going to look at three things, okay? One is overlay, the other is multiply, and the last one is screen. And these three things technically covers the majority of the work that we do in blending stuff. So the rest, like let's say in the multiply category, right? You see darken, burn and all that. They are similar to multiply. And then for lighten, screen, they are similar. They work in the same way. Okay, overlay, soft light is like different intensities of overlay. Okay, and the rest, I honestly don't really use it. This one maybe sometimes. So next time you can explore these on your own. Okay, so overlay, once you click on it, you must make sure you are in the metal texture. Okay, then you press overlay. So straight away, you can see something really cool. The lighting gives it away, right? Just now I was talking about the highlight. Okay. So what overlay does is that it takes a black and white image, a grayscale image, and it changes the base color based on the intensity of the black and white. So the darker areas will darken the base color. The brighter parts of your texture, like for example my highlights, right, will brighten up the base color. So overlay is basically taking the black and white and changing the intensity that's underneath. If it is 50% gray, right, that means in the middle, it does nothing. Okay, so 50% is neutral. Anything that's dark will turn darker, light will turn brighter. So this is a perfect way to overlay images. Let's okay, so if you find that your image is a bit bright, right? In my case, I might want to do some adjustment to my contrast or my brightness because it's a bit too much here. So I'm going to teach you another thing to do called levels. Okay, so select your object here, your layer, and we're going to choose the adjustment layer, one of them. So if you look at layers, adjustment layer, you can see a whole bunch of like brightness and contrast, change of hue and saturation. So it's basically color adjustment or brightness adjustment. So the first category, and Photoshop, they are quite kind, okay, they group everything that are similar into the same category. So all these before the line, right, all this is all about brightness, this is about colors, okay, and then this is about, I don't know how to use, so I don't really care about it. Okay, so we have a whole bunch of color adjustment things here. Now let's look at image adjustment. Do you see the same thing?
Yeah.
Yes, right? So people will usually ask me like, hey, what's the difference? Honestly, let me just check before I say the wrong stuff. Okay, yeah. Okay, so why is it that it isn't working this morning? Okay. So for image adjustment, right? It is basically adjusting your layers directly. So the moment you click OK, right? Let's say I click layers and I adjust. The moment I press OK, the settings disappear and it's permanently applied to your layer. What layer adjustment does is that the moment I click OK, it creates an additional adjustment layer that you can turn on and off anytime, and you can double click to adjust again. So what I'm teaching you, which is masking, adjustment layers, these are what we call non-destructive workflow. Non-destructive workflow means you can always reverse what you do. If you were to take an eraser, right, and then instead of masking, you go and erase parts of your painting, that's it. The moment you change your mind, right, you cannot get it back again. Okay, but for masking, right, oh yeah, something that I haven't covered, so I'll just quickly do it right now. Black and white. Black and white means white means can see, black means cannot, right? You can actually change the shape of your masking by using paintbrush. So if you select your mask, you go to your paintbrush and you choose, let's say I choose a black in color, and I start painting, right? You notice it will start to mask out my layers. If I use white, it will start to reveal again. Okay, so the idea of masking is that it is very it's very forgiving. You can go back and forth. If you erase something, you can never get it back again. Alright, so that is the idea. So same thing for adjustment layers, right? Is that you can always go back or you can remove it. But if you were to do image adjustment, that's it, you know. So this is kind of like a quick and dirty way to adjust photographs like that you take with your friends. You want to quickly change, then you just do adjustment. But if you really want to do production work or you want to do any digital work, right, then you want to make sure that you use the layers. So in fact, I've never touched image adjustment ever. I always work primarily in adjustment layer. Okay, so let's create an adjustment layer. So I'm gonna select my texture, and then I'm gonna create levels. Okay, a levels adjustment layer. So levels adjustment layer is actually brightness and contrast, but it is more advanced. It allows you to tweak more stuff, and yeah, basically that's it. So if you understand this chart, right, you kind of know what you're doing already. So basically this chart means your contrast, okay, your blacks and your whites, your darkest pixels and your lightest pixel. Right, so by clamming your black and white, so for example, if I want more pixels, so these are all these lines, they are actually your pixels. How many pixels are in this? How many pixels are in black? How many pixels are 50% gray? Okay, so if I were to clam it, I want more pixels to be black. You will notice that the black starts spreading, right? So more and more pixels are turning black, right? And you notice that it doesn't just adjust your texture, it actually adjusts your base color as well. So we'll talk about how to fix that later, okay? So for now, just look at your texture portion. So you can actually darken it. You can increase the contrast by forcing more pixels to be white. So I can bring my white area, I can start clamming. So more and more pixels are turning white, more and more pixels are turning black, and you get a very high contrast kind of image. So for now, my image looks very balanced, right? So this is not really the thing that I want to do. But if you find that your image is very exposed, like for example, okay, for example, if we have an image that is okay like this, all right, so everyone is so white, I mean no pun intended, okay, but sorry. Okay, let's say everyone is so fair, all right, that where's my layer? Okay, I want to open this as a separate file. Okay, everyone is so fair, right? And you want some contrast, for example. Can you see all the pixels are like boom, all in a white area? Okay, so you can clam. You can start clamming. You see that there's actually not much pixels that are black, so you just want to push so that usually if you do any image editing for your friends or whatever, right, it's a very simple step over here. You don't really have to understand the graph. All you need to do is just clam. Okay, that's all. Where there's nothing here, you just want to move the slider across. Then you get instantly, right, you get a lot more contrast. Okay, so this is probably, if you want more, you can bring it more, and then you kind of salvage more details. But things that are completely white, like that dress, right, you can't get it back anymore because there's no more details from the original image. Okay, so there's nothing that you can do anymore. Even if I were to darken, that's kind of like the maximum I can go. Okay, so you're just clamming to get the contrast. Now for the bottom level here, this is what we call the color of your pixel. So this is your contrast, right? Over here means that is your darkest pixel going to be black, or is it going to be 50% gray? Means is your black pixel a true black, or can you adjust it to be brighter? So that means your darkest pixel now is at this level of gray. Same thing, if you feel that all the whites are very white, right? You don't want your white to be pure white, you can actually bring down. So all your brightest white starts to become less white. So you see, a lot of the sky is gone, right? You can kind of just bring it down. If you don't want pure white to blind your eyes, right, you can kind of bring it down a little bit. So same thing for your texture. I'm going to bring it back to normal so you can kind of see what is happening to this guy. Okay, so my contrast and my contrast is basically okay. I feel that it's quite a balanced piece. There's no like crazy pixels on one side, right? So, but I find that my white, right, is too white. See here, the highlight is what's giving it away. So I want to turn down my whitest pixel. Okay, don't look at the background, just look at the texture. I want to turn down my whitest pixel to become less white. Can you see that? Now the highlight is a bit more even. Maybe you don't want your black to be so black, right? So you can bring it up again. So something like that. Oh, okay. Yeah, in 10 minutes, right? Yeah, so let's just finish this up first and then we go for a break. Okay, so all you need to do is just kind of adjust your stuff and then put an overlay. Oh, sorry, overlay on the wrong layer. Okay, you can see that your highlight is more or less adjusted. Last thing before you guys go for a break, you notice that the levels is affecting everyone below it. Alright, so if I were to move my layers out of the way, oh, you totally cannot see anything, but okay, if I were to move, let's say I move these two down, you can see that this guy is not being affected by the layer, right? So anything that's below adjustment layer is gonna be affected. So what we need to do is to clip it. Okay, so if you hold down alternate and you click on this line between them, it's technically going to clip it down to the layer at the bottom. So now you can see that my adjustment layer is only affecting one layer. So you can start to mess around, right, and play. Like you see all the crazy highlights. I actually bring it down so it's not so obvious. Okay, so clipping mask is it's actually a very fun thing to use. Like if you do painting, right? Any of you do digital painting? Your anime characters? No? Okay, so if let's say you have a base color here and you want to add a shadow, right? Let's say I want to add a shadow here, but I'm always painting out the line, right? So yes, you can use masking and all that. You can also use the control click so you can paint within. There's actually there's another way, alright? Create a new layer and just paint as per normal. If you were to clip it down, alternate click, it's gonna clip to the layer below. So you can kind of like create new layers, clip it down, and then start painting, and it's gonna observe the base shape. Alright, so that's the idea of this adjustment layer.